Hey, AfterBuzzers, welcome. We are going to be talking about the camping season finale, birthday party part 2. So in this episode, wow, we have a lot. We're going to talk about an almost threesome in an outhouse, the wrath of Kath, which is one of my favorite things ever, and some really awesome moments with Harry. So stick around.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Never get enough, we are all on
Jandice's drugs.
Yeah, Jandice's drugs. Yeah.
From her satchel.
You a Weezer fan?
I was, and then I forgot they existed.
I've been there. Yeah, they kind of, I feel like they were like 90s, 2000s, now.
Yeah.
But I like a good old Rivers Cuomo.
You know what? Me too. I'm glad we got to bring it back in for the
Yes.
finale of camping.
Finale of camping.
I'm very sad that this is our last show, Jeff.
I know, Amy, it's been really fun. I gotta say, guys, I've been an Amy Maestri fan for a while because I love the SNL After Show, which she hosts, and those hosts really know their comedy. And as a comedy nerd, it's nice to tune in and have an expert talk about game and sketch writing. So it was very fun to host with you, and I hope it's not our last time.
Well, thank
for
you,
this
Jeffrey.
huge hit show.
Monster ratings.
Monster ratings. Tons of engagement with our after show.
Yes.
No, it's all good. I think this is the kind of show that I think people will discover. And if that's the case, you'll still have to reach out to us. I know it's been a little bit of a slow burn with our fans, but we're always here. And we love, yeah. We'll talk about that at the end.
You guys can't see it, but there's a couch here. We actually just live here.
We do.
So
We camp here.
We're always here. Camping. Going out camping. All right. So before we went on air, I told Jeff, I was like, I feel like this episode for us is just going to be just as much of a free-for-all as the actual episode was.
Episode was wild.
So wild.
Yeah.
If you can summarize any kind of overall thought on this, what would that look like?
Excuse me. I wasn't sure how I felt about it during the finale. Honestly, if I'm being very candid, which is part of our jobs as, critics and hosts, in some ways I felt like a little disappointed. I felt like there were certain promises that we were made that weren't necessarily fulfilled. But then when I got to the end, I was like, I guess that's kind of the point. And I will say the episode ended and I was kind of like, damn, I would watch a season 2 of this if it happened. So they definitely did their job by the end. There was just some moments that I felt like I was all of a sudden watching a different TV show, which, as someone who's invested 4 hours in the rest of this season, I was a little bothered by that. I almost felt like I was, I don't know, cheated out of sort of what the show promised me it was.
Yeah, I think that's valid, because there were definitely times throughout the finale where I was just like, this, like, everything about it feels different.
It kind of felt like a classic second show, and in some ways that's a compliment. Like, you see this, the second show, the follow-up's always the hardest show, and sometimes what you'll do is you'll see creators lean into, I don't want to say their worst instincts, but sometimes if you get like the untamed version of like a show creator's voice, it can be a little problematic, and I think maybe sometimes it was a little too much Lena and Jenny and not enough network notes. I don't know, which isn't bad. That's super common for second shows, and what it's doing is it's giving these creators a chance to really flex their muscles and put out the show they wanted. I just don't know if it was always the show that I wanted based on this finale.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way of putting it, because you always saw Lena and Jenny in every single scene and everything.
Yeah.
And with a show they're working with a small amount of time for a big cast, big characters. And yeah, I think there could have been some better moments for them to kind of tell some of these stories, where some felt rushed, some felt like they went on a little too much longer because you wanted to see a little bit more of something else. And I think this finale that's what this finale was for me.
I did love the Harry stuff, and I'm excited to talk about that.
Yes.
Bridget kind of ended up being the hero of this show.
Let's just jump in to Harry. That's a great sentence. I know we've both been big Bridget Everett fans. So from episode 1, every time she was there, we just were so giddy about it. What a great moment for her, just telling this heartfelt story to Kathryn, who's still a dick at the end.
Yeah, this was I've never really seen Bridget Everett play dramatic. I've only seen, she's a very broad comic. If you guys don't know, she was a stand-up for a while, actually opened for Amy Schumer, so she's got a great pedigree, and she's also known for like kind of musical theater type of cabaret work. So this type of really grounded sort of dramatic monologuing is sort of something I haven't seen from her. and she really sold me. I thought this was my favorite moment, maybe from the show.
Same, yeah, because whenever she plays a straight man, it's still funny. It's still, there's something about the way that she's delivering lines, her body stance, her everything that still is funny as the straight man.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I was just like, I was so drawn in and captivated by this monologue of hers.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot. Well, you watch Girls. The episode where where Hannah, who Lena Dunham plays on the show, goes and gives sort of her testimony at the Moth. She goes to the Moth podcast, and it's the season where her and Jess are feuding all season, and Jess is dating Adam. I'll be quick for those of you guys who haven't watched Girls, but we get this like 5-minute unbroken monologue with this really slow camera push, and yeah, I think, like, say what you will about Lena Dunham, but she knows how to write a monologue, which is hard for TV.
Yeah, it's true. She is, like, and that's where it comes down to, she's just a good writer.
Yes.
Like, she's just such a solid writer. It doesn't have to be, like, quick, witty dialogue, or, she can just put pen to paper and make it really beautiful.
That's a good way to say it.
But yeah, I think Bridget Everett, we were talking to Ione Sky last week about how Carleen was kind of the heart of the show as a character. And I think in a lot of ways, Harry ended up also.
Yeah, sorry, Ione, I take it back.
You're not the heart.
No, actually, I left the show thinking both of them were, because she had a nice moment too. Carleen got a really interesting final moment. But yeah, it does kind of feel like the only emotionally stable character is probably Harry.
It's so true.
And does she have a new lover?
I think she does. And that's the thing. She's kind of like, she's had moments with most of them. And actually, that's something that I would have liked to see if this was a longer season. I wanted to see more moments with her and other cast members or other characters too.
Yeah,
just because they were always so special between, her and Walt.
Yeah.
Her and Kathryn. Her and Orvis.
Yeah.
Which, oh my gosh, in this, I love the shit out of you.
I know. It's like really sweet.
My favorite.
Only Bridget Everett could sell that line as well as she did.
Totally. You wanted to cry.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
But yeah, I would have liked to see her like have a moment with George or with Nina Joy, or especially with the young daughter who has found
Saul,
her first lady love.
Yeah, it would have been really interesting to see that, like, coming out of the closet share. It's it's nice to see those queer mentors with their young. I had to phrase this right. It's going off the rails with their queer mentees.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? It's like I think when you're that age, and sometimes nice to see someone probably who's living the life you could be living. So I would have been interesting to see Harry and Saul. And yeah, I would have. You mentioned Harry and George, which I would think would be really interesting because maybe she was the only one that could have talked some sense into his woke rage.
That is true. Like, she has such a like centered, calming presence, and is always like, I'm in control of this moment.
Yeah.
That I feel like he maybe needs to do a retreat with Harry.
Yeah, I think so. She's like kind of like the weird Jesus of the show.
Harry, the weird Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Bridget Everett played the weird Jesus beautifully.
I tweeted Bridget Everett today, and she hasn't been back on Twitter, so hopefully she just hasn't seen it and will respond with open arms to an interview opportunity. But if she bites, I think we could bring her back for a special and bring her back here to talk. So,
that would be
Bridget,
great.
if you're watching this, we love you very much, and you gave us a truly outstanding performance on this show. We want you to talk about your entry into dramatic television.
Yes, please. Come play with us.
Come play with us.
Yay. All right, so let's get into some of the couples of the show now. Just because left and right, either drop in or
Did anyone survive?
I think Kathryn and Walt for now.
Yeah, for now.
For now did.
Yeah.
So let's just start with them because obviously, like, kind of the lead character within Kathryn McSorley-Jodell and Walt. What a night they had.
Oh boy. There was so much entanglement that do we just kind of talk about it? I don't want to derail your plan for our discussion, but you even mentioned it's kind of a free-for-all,
yeah,
right?
there's really no plan because I don't think there is a plan for this episode either.
Definitely wasn't a plan for the characters.
No.
So I've never seen anyone orgasm like Walt orgasms. We can start with that.
Wow, yeah, great place to start because yikes.
Yikes. Jandice got her, she got it on. And if I were to guess Jandice's, I knew she was going to sleep with someone else. I did not expect it to be Walt.
Same.
Which this is an example where I almost feel a little like misled by the show. And there's an argument to be made of like a great mystery, you know, it's like they lead you off the trail and they end up somewhere else. But there were so many seeds planted for Walter and Carleen's husband.
Joe, yeah.
For Jandice and Joe.
Yeah.
That it almost felt like we were cheated that wasn't even explored.
Yeah. I get like the element of surprise at the end, but yeah, it was just kind of like almost too much surprise where you're just like, why? What? Why? Who?
Yeah.
No.
And for a show that's interested in exploring like the emotional heft of people's emotional consequences, I kind of wish this was handled a little more seriously. Like it was played as such a joke, even with Jandice. I don't know. I just like I had trouble with the way this played out personally.
I almost felt like this should have been like pieces of this should have been the second to last episode.
Yeah.
And then other pieces of it taken into a final episode that gave us a little bit just not even necessarily more closure, but just some more answers on some things and kind of what direction.
Some more logic.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, I get a little frustrated when writers just write off experiences because of drugs, where it's like, oh, this character wouldn't do that. No, drugs. Like, and I was reading an interview that Jenny did in the Hollywood Reporter that we'll talk about a little later, but she kind of kept leaning on that and being like, you know, this might be out of character for them, but they were all on drugs. Yeah. But it's a little frustrating that like our last opportunity with them shows them in a state that isn't their actual state as people. Like, because we're left with versions of these characters that aren't even themselves. And I don't feel like we were given much time to see who they really are at the end of the show.
That's such a good point, because I think that was kind of where, like, what I was trying to get at with, like, having pieces of this from a second to last episode.
Yes.
Because, yeah, it was like, I was just like, this is such a funny, weird episode. But, like, it's not, I don't want it to be the last episode.
Right. It just would have been much more interesting from a character perspective to see them really, like, rack with the consequences of what happened in real time, like as people, rather than just allow them to throw any inhibitions to the wind because they're on drugs, and to not allow us to see the consequences of those decisions.
Yeah. Because I mean, I'm always a fan of kind of something open-ended where the audience gets to say like, yeah, I think this is what happened. And they essentially did that with all the couples, but yeah, they were still in such a weird place.
Right. Because even George and Nina Joy's, we're just jumping around, which is fine, but their closure can just be thrown to the excuse of like, oh, like they were on drugs. And
exactly.
I just wish we would have gotten to see them kind of, I'm being redundant, but just really wrestle with the consequences of their choices in a sober state. Yeah,
because I mean, for each one of these couples, you know, you see them, okay, Nina Joy and George, done. Carleen and Joe, they're probably going to stick it out. He's probably going to F it all up again.
Right.
But she's probably going to stay with him.
Right.
And Walt and Kathryn are giving it a try.
I liked the way that was handled. Like, it was left open-ended, but in a way where at least we got to see them cope. Even if it's just that 10-second scene we got, that was enough. Even though it was deliberately open-ended, I felt satisfied as a viewer of television by the way they closed that arc.
Yeah.
I feel a little like I was cheated with the other characters a little bit.
You know, it's funny because at that moment, like when the blackout happened after they're holding hands and they're driving, I was like so happy with that moment, but immediately was like, I'm angry with the rest of it.
Yeah,
like,
that's
a very conflicting moment.
It's kind of how I feel about the episode.
Yeah.
Just like, I think really beautifully handled with that couple, kind of complicated in a way that I love with these showrunners, but a little bit unsatisfied and unexplored with the rest of the characters.
Yeah. And what a great moment for Jennifer Garner at the end, just forcing back those tears, and then also just David Tennant, like you just felt like so much tension and so much from him, like even just being silent after he said it, after he blurted it out.
It was intense. You could feel Jennifer Garner being like, "Get me that Emmy. I need this nomination. This is my return to television."
She's like, I'm doing TV again. Come on.
This is how I'm gonna feel if I don't get this Emmy nomination.
Look at it.
When you get that silent tear, that's when it's like, Emmy voters.
Yeah. Done.
Get that paper out.
Count it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And so, yeah, I think really the only one that we know for sure at this point is Jandice and Miguel.
Yeah. And
poor Miguel kind of got just kind of tossed to the side in general. And
for me, he's the prime example of what's frustrating about this finale for me is his last moment is like kind of regrettably being coerced into a blowjob. Like, that's where we end.
That's a rough story to end on.
It just wasn't funny enough to be funny, and wasn't logical enough to be dramatic. It was just kind of like, this?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was weird.
And also the fact that, like, it jumped from that scene directly to Jandice just, like, walking out and finding Walt. And I was like, wait, what? And then later all we see is Miguel just curled up in fetal position. So
Yeah. It was rough. And to me, like, it was depressing without being thematically interesting, personally. Like, girls could get really dark and depressing, but I always felt like I understood, like, sort of why. And I was like, why have Miguel give Joe a blowjob?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think it's, again, like, kind of to Jenny Connor's point that we brought up earlier of her, that, oh, well, they were on drugs.
I know, and she kind of kept writing it off that way. And I guess the idea is they will deal with it, but I would have liked to have seen some of that fallout.
Yeah, to see some of that fallout. I think I mentioned on predictions last week, I almost would have liked to see his ex come back. I almost would have rathered see the ex come back than Braylon come back for Nina Joy. Even though I did think that some of the writing for him was hilarious.
For sure.
What a Lena Dunham line. Welsh pentameter.
Welsh pentameter. It was really good. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we're being hard on this episode. There's stuff I loved about it.
Yeah. Let's talk about what we liked.
Yeah. I mean, again, the Walt and Kathryn stuff I think was really interestingly handled and challenging in a way that I love. Whereas maybe some of the other stuff was challenging in a way that I didn't vibe with. But we mentioned the Harry stuff, the Walt and Kathryn stuff. I really liked the moment where kind of how Kathryn and Carleen ended their little arc.
Agreed.
I thought that was a great kind of satisfactory conclusion to their story.
Yeah, just kind of seeing that they're going to be able to kind of be their own person for a while, separate, and with that hope that, like, maybe they can actually be like sisters to each other again and just kind of take their time apart right now.
Anytime a show can create such an implicative moment with so little. So just something as simple as, I don't know if I need to take this scheduled phone call, for that to mean so much in terms of their journeys as characters shows that Lena and Jenny have been doing a lot of work that we haven't necessarily been seeing. And to have that really small moment pay off in spades the way that it did, that's what I would have liked to have seen more of with the other characters, I think. Yeah,
because so many of those little nuggets that we talked about throughout the season having such a big payoff now by them literally just saying that.
Yeah, it's a great, for sure. That was a really great payoff, and it's an example of, like, sharp writing that means a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, even earlier in the episode, just Carleen still dealing with so much of, like, her control issues, like with Kathryn's control issues over her, and the line that she always said a real woman would have stopped wearing Laura Ashley a long time ago absolutely killed me. I thought that was one of my favorite lines from the episode. Because again, they just it was so often that they either had lines that just kind of went flat because you were wanting something more, or they kind of like skirted around something, but then other times it's lines like that you just learn so much about a character, and there's so much detail, and it's so rich in the dialogue for them.
I think, like, the lines that are landing for me are the ones that feel super earned. I mean, like, Jenny and Lena are always amazing writers, but if there's not that character work kind of buttressing that writing, it won't always pay off. But for me, like, anything Kathryn says would always hit because it always felt super earned. Or, like, Jandice, too. Whereas, like, maybe with Miguel, it's like, I don't know if I know this guy well enough to, like, buy into this line or this moment. Kind of.
And it's kind of a bummer because I loved his performance. I thought he was just so cute and fun and funny, and he really did he had his moments, but I think he was probably, for me, the most underused as far as a character goes.
I think very heavy in the first half, and we didn't get a ton in the second half.
He just kind of cried sometimes in the second half, and that was about it.
Maybe that was the actor. They just filmed him. Here are your signs for this week. You know what I did love in this episode, speaking of things we loved, was the fight. I normally don't love a cat fight, and I don't always love when TV just kind of stereotypically pits women against each other, but watching Juliette Lewis and Jay Garnes throw down,
like, and I agree, and this was earned. Speaking of earned, this was earned. And like I said in the opening, Wrath of Kath. When Juliette Lewis gets up and is just so excited that she got to see the Wrath of Kath, I was like,
Wrath of Kath. Gosh, she was great this season.
Oh, God.
Both of them.
Speaking of Emmy.
I know.
I mean, my goodness.
And I do think this is the kind of performance that could sneak like one of those supporting Emmy noms. You know, I think of a show like Getting On, where Niecy Nash would always get nominated for supporting, even though I love that show and I love everything on HBO. But even though not tons of people watch that show, it's such a rich performance that, like, if you send a reel to Emmy voters, even if they haven't seen Camping, you watched 2 minutes of Juliette Lewis on that show and you're convinced. I think that it's one of the strongest comic performances of the year.
That's a good point. I mean, she really held the whole season comedically.
Yeah, she did.
Just for beginning to end. And I'm glad that towards the end, it's funny, we're talking about Miguel heavy in the beginning. Towards the end, we got to see more of the Kathryn Jandice stuff that I think we were all hoping for so long in the early half. And so, yeah, I think the explosion and the fight was definitely earned between the two of them.
Their journey was pretty interesting, actually. Yeah. I think, like, the way Kathryn McSorley-Jodell kept skirting her desire to be friends with Jandice, I think was a very interesting meditation on how people in their 30s and 40s sometimes act. Of, like, I think in your 20s, like, you can be friends with anyone, but, like, as you start to, like, set the rules for what your life is supposed to be as a middle-aged person, it's easy to, like, draw arbitrary barriers for certain people because they don't vibe with what you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I felt like that moment where she was like, yeah, I just, like, you're not the kind of person I can be friends with.
Yeah.
Was really interesting.
Very telling. I mean, it really is, like, that's how she views everything. Like, it's even if inside she's like, yeah, I think I could kind of see this. She's like, no, I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. I liked a lot of this episode. I feel like I came out a little critical at the beginning, but most of this really worked for me.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed the episode. I just didn't want it to be the season finale episode.
That's perfect. That's a perfect assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was so much fun. And again, they do such a good job with such a limited amount of time and so many people to not let it get messy.
Right.
This was a messy episode, but it didn't feel messy in the execution and the writing of it.
That's a good point. It didn't feel deliberately messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Even though there's blood everywhere, Bridget Everett's fallen through a roof.
Oh, yeah, that happened.
That happened.
Yeah, George and Nina Joy's breakup, I feel like we have to talk about.
Yeah. I think this is something that was interesting because first half of the season, I think everyone was like, they're the couple. They're the guys who have it figured out. And then it slowly started to unravel. And then we're like, oh, wow, they should not be together.
Yeah. I guess that Welsh pentameter is winning out.
Braylon, what a little dummy.
What a little dummy. Man.
And I mean, again, like not getting to see that kind of after, I mean, she just drove off on the scooter with him. So, we really didn't get to see, kind of that, like we said, the fallout after that.
Yeah.
But the two of them, just watching the two of them together, they must have so much fun doing those scenes together.
Yeah. Because y'all know Brett and Jasnica are married in real life.
Yeah.
She's directing a movie right now in Florida.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So that must have been a lot of fun, just especially for Brett Gelman. My God, just going on.
Maybe some unspoken marital baggage.
It's a good therapy session.
Yeah,
maybe.
good therapy. We'll leave it at that. Yeah.
And then, I'm glad we got to see a little Orvis in this episode. Little tiny bit, but it was worth it just to see Harry just fall in love with Orvis.
Sweet. Yeah, I couldn't help but think, man, is Orvis in the back seat of this car?
Same.
I was like, ooh, this poor kid.
I kept like being like, is he sitting back there right now?
I think I watched it back and I feel like maybe in like the blurred edges of the lens they were using, I saw he had headphones on.
I feel like that's probably what I didn't notice him back there, but that's what I was saying. I was like, I hope that kid has some headphones on.
Oof. Yeah.
Oh man. And then so the final couple, the one that is gonna last, Saul and her little girlfriend.
Saul and her little bae. Yeah.
I thought that was sweet. I thought it was a nice, sweet way for them to end. God, they're just both so good at like little teenagers in love who are full of angst and like hope.
That's what's so tragic is you're like, oh boy, is this like show's worldview? It's fine when you're young, but look where you're headed.
Yeah.
Dark stuff.
I think that moment of them watching everyone in the barn for a moment really said that of they're just like, oh wow, this is
what we have to look forward
adulthood.
to. Yeah.
Let's enjoy our quiet time in the tent now.
Yes.
Well, any other overall thoughts just kind of about the season itself before we get into some special segments?
It was a really interesting show. I think like my takeaway is like any Lena and Jenny show, the writing was always very, very good. I think like if I had to put on my critic hat, I would have loved to have seen a bit more maybe assuredness with the way the characters developed on this show. I'm not sure everything quite added up in the way that I wanted to, and maybe that's personal. Like again, maybe that was the intention of the show creators, but
Yeah.
I think this is common with second shows for showrunners and creators, and it's good to let people have their unfettered vision of what they want things to be, because I feel very strongly that for both of them, their next project might correct some of the gripes that we have, but still maintain the brilliant writing that really sustained me through enjoying this show overall.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I think so much of the dialogue, and I mean so many of the things that when we were most excited on this panel talking about it were those specific lines, the character driven lines, the things that like Lena's really known for in a lot of her writing, and which Ione Skye even, you know, confirmed in saying how, you know, how in depth she goes with her characters and how she knows everything about their backstories and everything about where they come from. And I think that's why I think I've said it since episode 1. I wanted either a longer episode, a longer format, or maybe just 10 episodes, maybe just 10 30-minute shows instead.
Yeah.
Because I think it's not something that needs to go much further than that, but I think 2 more episodes and stretching out a little bit more of this and being able to play with some of the characters a little bit more would have gone a long way for me.
I think too, maybe just like having a couple more definable goals for these characters, like just to give us an idea of where we should be looking for them. I mean, arcs definitely formed, and I got a sense of who these characters were and what they wanted as the show developed, but excuse me, even some like tangible goals, like someone's trying to publish a book, or like I don't know, just some of that stuff might have compelled me a little more. But this is just, you know, it's always at the end of a season you think about this stuff, and overall great performances, fun show, and I liked hanging out with these people.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Very good way to put it. Well, speaking of hanging out, I think you have a camping story for us.
I do have a camping story. So I teased you guys all season. I've got some camping experience, and I've been saving my story for last.
Yes, best for last.
When I was a wee young lad, I went to a camp in Pennsylvania at a place called Ligonier Camp and Conference Center. And it's a beautiful kind of, if you've ever been to Pennsylvania or like anywhere sort of, well, I mean, any state has this, but you know, you have populated cities, but you have some remote areas. And Ligonier is like this really old, like there's a fort there from the Revolutionary War, kind of historic town.
Nice.
But it's mostly just like fields. Like it's like this kind of abandoned, very barren town. And this beautiful camp is really tucked away. But there is a mental institution, like an insane asylum, if I'm allowed to say that, if it's politically correct, that's about half a mile from the campsite. So when I am like 9 years old, as like a wee little camper, we have one night, we normally sleep in cabins, but we have one night where we go into the mountains and like camp, like literally tents, all that stuff. And as we're around the fire, we hear the alarm for the insane asylum go off, which means someone has escaped. So it's like, and it's a really scary, it echoes, a lot of these small towns have tornado alarms or this kind of stuff, and it's like, and when you're
really
a kid, it's scary. And our counselor, he's like, everything's fine, guys, everything's fine. So we all go in our tents and we hear like, Joe, that's the insane asylum, someone's out. And he's like, don't tell the kids. And like, we hear it all. And so all of us are just freaking out. And like, of course, the one boisterous camper is like, I think our counselor's name was Evan. He's like, Mr. Evan, like, what's going on? And Evan's like, nothing, everything's fine. But at that point, there wasn't enough communication to know whether or not it would be safer for us to go back to our cabins or stay in the mountains. And we did hear rustling all night, but it was probably animals. But it could have been a crazy killer.
Probably.
I know. So that's my camping story. The time I thought I might die.
That's great.
Exactly. Our producer, Juliette, she's on it.
Yes.
Pretty intense.
That is. I don't know what I would have thought as like a little child.
Because you're so young, you're all like away from your parents. You're like, well, I hope they didn't love me too much because I might not be coming back.
Because I'm a goner.
Because I'm a goner. So that's my camping story. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we saved that one.
It was fine.
That's a good one. That's okay. That's okay.
Consistent with the segment, the story's fine.
Yes. All right. Well, I think we have a little news and gossip too.
We do have some news and gossip.
AFTERBUZZ TV News.
Let's start with Lena. There was a very interesting profile written in The Cut that she was very candid about, actually last week. So about the day before we went live. And I will say for fans of Lena, it's a really, really good article. It goes very specifically in depth about some of her neuroses and how she allows those to inform her art. And a lot of people criticize Lena Dunham. How do you feel about, I know we both love her as an artist. People are always very apt to describe her as like a public persona. What's your opinion on like the way she occupies society?
Yeah, like you said, as a writer, hands down, amazing. But yeah, on that side of it, I feel like she's well-intentioned a lot of times, but she takes a lot of missteps for me.
Definitely. Well, that's what the article like kind of dove into, is like some of the guilt she's felt over some of the things that she said and how those owe to some of her neuroses. And she was pretty candid about the fact that her very public battle with endometriosis was much, I think, more intense than maybe the media gave it credit for. And really she became pretty addicted to prescription medications and coming off those medications, kind of struggling with PTSD from how intense the pain was through. So it's cool. It was cool to see her be so open and very brave. I mean, people always describe Lena Dunham as brave, but I think it allowed me to have a deeper sense of where a lot of her artistic inspirations come from.
Yeah, I consider that to be more brave than just like being naked on girls for no reason.
For sure.
So well done to her. And I know actually an article I was reading in the Hollywood Reporter kind of touched on some of the stuff that we were mentioning too with Lena and Jenny, if they will want to work on another season, which all signs point to no.
Yeah, well, Lena opened up about Jenny in this article in a way that it was, for someone who's such an open book, I think it was the one thing that she was very notably private about. When she was asked about Jenny, the way the article presented it was like, I don't want to speak for Jenny, but I think for now we are pursuing our own projects. Yeah. And what was interesting about that moment of the article was it stood in such stark contrast. I mean, she opened up about Jack and Lord. Her ex-boyfriend, Jack Antonoff, has been dating Lord, and she was even very candid about that, where saying she's like, Lord used to be a friend, but unfortunately I can't talk to her now. So she's unwilling to talk to Lord because she's like, I don't think Jack cheated, but I just can't know.
Yeah.
So for her to be so open with all that personal stuff, but really not speak very on the record about her and Jenny's relationship, did play in a way that can't help but make me and other fans wonder what happened.
Yeah, I think we'll probably find out in like 5 years.
Yeah, and frankly, there's maybe an argument to be that it's not our business, but it's a bummer because like they kind of, for me, were like this aspirational dream team of a, like, you know, this like powerful Hollywood producing partnership. Yeah. So to see that kind of quietly collapse without much explanation as to how or why, it can be a little disappointing, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. As a viewer and as a fan to know. And yeah, just seeing, especially like as a female in comedy and production, like to see this like great duo, great team kind of fizzle out and we don't know why. You know, like you want to hope that, it's because they do want to work on separate projects. They want to work on separate, you know, voice different opinions right now. But
well, and the real bummer with it is that Lenny Letter, which was their like feminist publication that I think had a lot of really interesting and sharp things to say about the female experience in Hollywood, has also dissolved. So it's like, it's one thing if they want to pursue their own projects independently, but if they were so passionate about, you know, really authentically and earnestly engaging with these issues, it's a bummer to see that platform just go away.
Yeah, that's why, unfortunately, you do just kind of know something went down there.
It seems like it. I don't know. Let us know in the comments what you think. But I think they're both insanely talented. And like, I want to see them make more stuff because I want to watch it. So
so whatever it takes, whether you're together or separate, just do it.
Yeah.
Just make stuff.
But connected to that Hollywood Reporter article you were talking about, it does not sound like we're going to see a season 2 of this show.
Yeah, I don't believe so. I know both of them were saying very much like, that's kind of the card they were playing a lot of times is, you know, we both have our independent voices that we want to branch out and, you know, be able to speak. Right. And so it's, you know, it's a very politically correct way, I think, of going about it. But
seems like it.
Hey, if that's the case, then sure, like we said, as long as you're still creating something, because we just want to keep seeing things from both of them.
Amen. So. Well, on a lighter note, Kathryn McSorley Jodell herself has been on Instagram. Jennifer Garner posted about mostly a delicious bolognese sauce she made, which I just have to laugh for a minute because one of the huge running through lines of the joke was how like overproduced Kathryn McSorley Jodell's Instagram is. This is like a pretty well lit Instagram collage. For those of our video viewers who can see, it's kind of an adorably presented recipe for bolognese sauce.
Oh yeah, Kathryn totally had a hand in this.
Totally had a hand in this. But I love it. I love Jennifer Garner, and the best part about this post is the final frame, which features the whole entire cast of camping enjoying the bolognese sauce that Jennifer Garner made.
Yeah. Look at those happy
So we
faces.
see everyone, including Saul, which I love that. It's really, really cool. I've loved Jennifer Garner, and I love that she, it would be easy to not invite the youngin' who's the guest star on the show, but Bridget and Saul, their characters are both there, and I can see why probably Orvis wasn't invited to this party. But
I can too, yeah.
yeah. But I really love all these actors, and yeah, my general impression of this show is really positive, so I just want to see them all continue to kick ass.
Same. And I mean, when we were talking to Ione last week, and she was saying, what am I working on next? Hopefully more of this. Just good projects, good writing, interesting characters, So I just want to see that for all of these guys, because my God, was that a amazing cast to watch.
Stacked cast for sure.
Well, we've come to an end, Jeffrey.
I know. And I know we don't have predictions, but in lieu, I'd want to know, do you want a second season of this show?
With the way that it ended, I kind of would. Maybe a shortened run of it, or even just like a short feature.
I was thinking that.
To kind of wrap some stuff up and see a little bit more from them, because I think no matter the issues that I may have had with certain story arcs or lack thereof sometimes, the characters were all so interesting and endearing.
Yeah, and I was watching most of this episode feeling kind of like, I don't know if I need more of this, and then I was very impressed by the way they closed Walt and Kat's cat. Not once have we called her Kat. Kathryn and Walt's relationship.
A nickname status now.
Yeah, we finally got there. I really thought it was a satisfyingly cliffhanger way. It's just, I love the idea that we closed the book on them there, but I did think, what an interesting story to tell. Because, that's finally the door was opened. All season, it's been this question of how does a female with no libido deal with her husband? Because that's a legitimate question. I pitied Kathryn there.
Yeah.
Very sympathetic. But, it's almost like she knew in some ways that this was coming. And, now I want to see more of them.
I think that's such a testament to the show and the writing of these characters that, again, no matter what issues we may or may not have had with it throughout the season, here we are at the finale, and we want to see more from these characters.
Yeah.
So, bye, characters.
Bye, guys. It's a good trip.
It was literally a good trip that ended on a trip.
Yeah, so many trips.
So many trips.
Yeah.
Inception. Well, Jeffrey.
Amy.
It was such a pleasure hosting with you.
So much fun. We'll do another show soon.
Yes, we definitely
We were
will.
talking, there's a new Comedy Central show coming out written by Sarah Schneider and Chris Kelly that looks pretty fun. That I think seems up our alley. So you might see us back together soon.
Just might. In the meantime, where can we find you on social media?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Jeffrey C. Graham. I host a weekly pilot review show here on Wednesdays, and that's it for now, but I've got other stuff, so you can follow me on Twitter to find out what that is.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Amy Maestri, and if you're a Romanoffs fan, stick around. I'll be doing the Romanoffs after show following this, and like Jeff mentioned, I also do the SNL show Sundays at 8 o'clock, so tune in if you like SNL.
And Amy also does great comedy stuff. She's written some sketches, been in some sketches, really good stuff, so check out that too. It's not just AfterBuzz. You're welcome.
Thank
it's
you
great
very
stuff.
much.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.